Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good tonight. Um, don't have any specific topic of discussion, but just thought I would check in here. Posted a couple other videos, well, probably two over the last week, um, discussing a little bit of my past and my history and in my opinion on some of the current events going on. So, yep. So I did that earlier this week. I post them. I'm sort of a little bit. Even though I'm normally pretty open about posting stuff, I sort of the next day I sort of go back and look at it, and I'm sort of like, that sort of sucked or whatever. I just don't feel like it was worthy of being posted, but I still get some comments on stuff. I post a little bit of my Facebook, and I end up removing them from my timeline usually the next day. So um, yeah, so hold on. And I'm just having a drink here. Yeah, I like to loosen my mind a little bit with some mental lubricant and a little bit of Coke. Something in Coke. I'll leave that up to your all's imagination. But so yeah, I sort of enjoy doing these. I was a little bit reluctant to do them under my own name, because I'm so easily found, especially if people don't agree with me or what I'm saying. I mean, I try to be as neutral as possible. I mean, I really don't have a political agenda except to sort of tell the truth, at least from my point of view. I hate when people say like this is my truth, your truth is your truth. I mean, there's really only one truth, but what I try to do in these videos is sort of tell what I feel. And it's not my truth, but just sort of the common sense truth that I gather, from discernment, looking at news, trying to look at things like from a non-biased point of view. So um, lots of people that's hard for some people. It's easier for others, as I've said, here in the past. People like Tim Pool, Michael Yon. They're both pretty relatively controversial figures because they're not heavily followed. Tim Pool was a Vice News guy, who covered Occupy Wall Street and was popular through those channels for a while. But over the years, as he's tried to objectively as possible cover the news, people on his own side, on the left side, came against him. People on the right at the time didn't like him either. So he sort of went out there. He's somewhere. I would put him somewhere in the middle of the road. He's libertarian. I would probably place him as a sort of a solid libertarian, but a little bit left, like a lot of leftist views. Like for me, for example, I consider myself socially liberal. So when it comes to gay rights, uh, racial things, I'm sort of liberal in those aspects. But when it comes to uh, morality, family structure, pro-life, pro-life versus like pro-choice. I tend to lean more a little bit toward the pro-life side. Um, you know, I just don't think abortion should be used for birth control. If there's a legitimate reason, life of the mother, rape, incest, I'm cool with that. But those are such a small percentage of abortions. Or the rape, incest, life. Yeah, rape, incest, life of the mother. And too often, um, abortion is used just as a birth control. You know, chick gets drunk at bar, takes guy home, gets pregnant, doesn't want to carry it, can't carry it in college. Doesn't have family support, and so she aborts it. But um, early on, RU 486, I'm cool with the drug, taking the drug early, first term. first third of first term, or whenever she finds out in the first term. But if it's third term, um, third trimester, that's pushing it a little bit. You should have made your decision before you got to that point. I mean, I know it's a hard decision. I can't even begin to imagine what you know the different situations women go through. They probably, some of them might have had a lot of pressure from parents to keep it, to not keep it from other family members. But so I can't even begin to say I know anything about this topic. And any feminist would tell me, like, you don't have a vagina, so you have no right to say anything. But I feel I do have a right to say something. I mean, it takes two to tango. It takes two to make a baby. DNA, chromosomes, comes from both sides. Yeah, sure, the woman has to carry it, but what is the Superman quote? With great power comes great responsibility. Women have great power. They have the power of procreation. That's something that men don't have. They have the power, and men have the power to initiate procreation, but it's ultimately um, the woman's obligation to procreate. So with great power comes great responsibility. So it really has to be thought out. But I'm going off into the weeds here now. So um, yeah, other than that, it's been a pretty good week. Twitter got hacked. Twitter got hacked. It's not yesterday now. It was the day before. So I guess if today's Saturday, yesterday was Friday, it would have been Thursday. I believe Twitter got hacked. If you follow sort of the Q channels, the QAnon, they talked about like a blackout. That was probably what they were talking about, was the Twitter lockdown. They basically locked down all verified accounts from celebrities, politicians, so on and so forth, because they got hacked. Um, and again, going back to the Tim Pool guy, he basically said that, and he makes a pretty good point that Twitter probably needs to be somewhat nationalized as a service, because it's pretty pervasive. I mean, almost everybody either has Twitter or reads Twitter or has an account that they don't use. And it probably needs to be nationalized at some point, because if you really think about it, um, if the hackers would have maybe coordinated a little bit differently, or whatever, they could have basically changed the whole world and every as we know it, now, because if they got access to posts, which they did, of politicians and celebrities and news reporters and independent journalists and so on and so forth. What they could have done is they could have, like, posted a message from Donald Trump or from Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton and said, like, hey, it's time to rise up against Trump, or like if it was from Trump, it's time to rise up against the deep state. And then they could have coordinated it to where they said, okay, from reporter accounts, they could have said, well, this is happening right now. You need to hit the streets. You need to, rise up. So that would have been coming from reporters. And then they could have gone to sort of like the next level below the reporters and said, hey, um, excuse me. Uh, okay, like, for example, people like John Stossel, Mark Dice, some of the people that aren't always on mainstream, like, hey, like, you need to do this and that. They basically could have directed and orchestrated an entire revolution by hacking Twitter. It's that simple. They could have orchestrated an entire revolution. Um, so that's scary. I mean, it really is a scary thing, and hopefully, well, what I'm hoping at least is that the hackers were perhaps somewhat benevolent, to where they knew, again, just like I said before, with great power comes great responsibility. So maybe they knew what they were doing, and they sort of wanted to make people realize, um, how easy it would be for that to happen, uh, to foment a revolution electronically on an online social media platform. I mean, if they really would have went all out, maybe they could have hacked Facebook. They could have hacked Parlay and other social medias, shutting them down at the same time, and then having just Twitter, um, Twitter posts coming out saying, rise up against whoever, you know, based on whatever side the hacker might have taken. So it's a scary, scary thought. Um, yeah. Um, Let me see here. I'm gonna put my glasses on here. So yeah, there was a Twitter hack. Um, the QAnon stuff, starting to pick up a little bit. There was a couple analysi of articles that had to do with potential Q drop coming from various parties. So that have to do with like the JFK Jr. Um, potentially faking his death, which I think that would be cool. Um, I mean, I don't know if I've covered that in previous videos, but honestly, like JFK Jr., I specifically sort of remember the day he died because I got in my marriage. I've been married once, but in my marriage, JFK Jr., the plane crashed in Martha's Vineyard like the day before I got married. So, as my ex wife and I were heading out to our honeymoon in Florida, I remember all the newspaper covers and stuff, JFK Jr., dead and so on. And he, at the time, that was back in 1999, he was running against Hillary Clinton for New York Senate. Um, that was sort of the first step in Hillary's progression into higher politics, after the Clinton administration. So, she was first lady from 1992 to 2000, and when Clinton left office, and then she wanted to take on a life of her own. So what did she do? She bought a house in Chappaquiddick, not Chappaquiddick. I can't remember. She bought a house in New York and moved into that before the end of the Clinton administration. So she was basically a resident of New York, and she could run in New York. So John F. Kennedy Jr. Running against him, there virtually would have been no way she could have won against John F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, that was sort of the peak of his popularity. He was like a young hottie, like all the younger women in that area loved him, and all the women probably wanted, like, all the men wanted to be him, all the women wanted to be with him, so. And then his wife, was in the plane too. What was it, Jacqueline Bisset? And then I believe her sister might have been in the plane as well. I can't remember all the details, but the plane went down, and conspiracy theory um, is that he got tipped off that he was being targeted by the Clinton body count. Um, was being targeted by whoever those parties are, and so what a conspiracy channels say is that he faked the crash. He threw them off of his trail, the Clinton people off of his trail, and he was whisked away. Um, for however long it took. I mean, you really have to sort of Google some of this stuff. There's like the George magazine that he started back in the late '90s. That had a lot of symbolism and stuff on the covers of the magazine. There was a lot of people thought he started it. He called it George because of George Washington, but it wasn't. A lot of people believed he called it George because George Bush Sr. was in the CIA when when his father was shot. And a lot of people, a lot of conspiracists think that George Daddy Bush, I would just call him Daddy Bush, was behind that in some manner. He was a younger man at that time, obviously back in 1963. but a lot of people believe that, Daddy Bush was behind it, or maybe Prescott Bush, his father, and Bush Jr.'s grandfather was possibly somewhat involved. So it's I'm just tossing out stuff here. I'm just for interest. Um, I'm not saying necessarily whether or not I believe in all this or not. I mean, it's fun. It's fun to think about in the grand scheme of things. Again, I use that occasionally. In the grand scheme of things, it's fun to think about, and that we're all being maybe deceived. The government's tested stuff on people, for example, for ages. Um, you have the MK Ultra program, which some of that is whatever's left of that has been declassified somewhat. You have the Jesse Ventura book. I sent that uh, link to a friend of mine. It's like 63 documents the government does not want you to see, and it includes everything from I believe like John F. Kennedy things to like syphilis testing on Black Americans back in the 40s and 50s. The Gulf of Tonkin, never actually happening. And I think even the Navy's finally come out and said that that never actually happened the way that history says it happened. It was just for lack of better words, a false flag incident to justify our entrance into the Vietnam War. So just Google it, man. That's all I'm saying. Don't crucify me. Don't think that I'm trying to push any belief. I'm just tossing this stuff out there, people. So um, so there's a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, I could go on for probably hours on all this, but I'm not going to. I'm growing my beard out, so I've been going about 3-4 weeks now. I think I'm gonna go all the way through like next March. So, and I have some hair coming out too. I usually shave my head. I used to shave it like once or twice a week, but I'm letting that grow out. I'm letting the beard grow out, and people seem to like it so far. No complaints. Friends and stuff, um, but yeah, I mean, it sort of seems as in the mass media that the city protests have died down a bit. There's been some reports of unmarked uh, cop cars, like up in Portland and Washington or whatever, pulling up next to protesters up there and like dragging them into the car and whisking them away. So I saw a little bit of that on Tim Pool and a couple other podcasts earlier. So hey, something has to be done. But it seems as if the media is even sort of tiring of the whole situation, and now they're going back to Trump, Orange Man bad, Biden good. I mean, it's maddening. Biden. I mean, nobody can say Biden. I mean, you're lying to yourself if you can say Biden is a good guy. Yeah, I mean, maybe a long time ago. I mean, somewhat he may have been a good guy. He may have had some good policies or some good laws that he, was a proponent of. But even the Democrats, even Kamala Harris, um, you Tulsi Gabbard, numerous other Democrats during the early Democratic debates earlier this year and this past year, they crucified him. What's her name? Kamala Harris was talking about like the busing scandal, I guess back during the civil rights and time in that era. You know, and then they turn it around now that Biden's the only Democrat still in. Now they're talking about making Kamala Harris his running mate. The same Kamala Harris that called him a racist and a bad person in the Democratic debate. Now they want her to be the running mate. So maybe it's a DNC like conceding to you know and again watch some of my previous videos, but conceding to the uppercase Black Lives Matter. I'm not talking about the grassroots organization that's fighting for real civil rights. I'm talking about the uppercase BLM, which is globalists and white people with a few black people who are the face of it, who are Marxist. It's the Marxist part of it. I totally support, Black Lives Matters in general. What I call lowercase BLM, which are just the average everyday small town across the country, black people in communities fighting against, police brutality and general bigotry. I'm totally for that, but I'm not for the uppercase BLM, which is run by globalists, liberal white people, and so on. That may take a little Googling too for you to figure out the difference between them if you're not familiar with what I'm saying here. But yeah, it's the truth. So, um, but it seems as if the media is sort of tiring of things. I don't even know the current headlines are all the COVID. Uh, I hate even saying that keyword because now I know this video, the same one you're watching now, when you clicked on it, because I said the word COVID, it's going to be a restricted video. So if you were smart enough to click past that notice and watch this far into it, 21 minutes and 12 seconds into it, you'll you'll know that's why this was marked restricted. So, but what's a good word? The plague, kung flu, Wuhan virus. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but it did come from China. China. There's a good video I send people talking about China. It's like a picture. Donald Trump's always like, moving his hands back and forth and stuff when he's giving speeches and everything. Somebody came up with a video where they superimposed a whatchamajiggy, the thingy. Shit, I don't know. Over top of them. And what is that called? Hmm, a freaking accordion. That's what it was. It was an accordion. They superimposed like an accordion over top of him as he was giving the speech, and I just thought it was hilarious. So even though I'm sort of okay with Trump on some issues and stuff, I still can laugh at him. You know, I mean, you know, what's the world coming to when you can't laugh at your own politicians or your own, whoever you support or whoever you don't support? Whatever happened to, humorous political satire and you know, and it's maddening, just how polarized and vitriolic things have come over the last 3 years, 4 years. I mean, really, really sad. Just having a smoke here before I go to bed. I've been trying to cut back, but these are pretty good. They're see if I can get it in here. American Spirits. It's a Santa Fe, New Mexico tobacco company or whatever. Really good cigarettes. They're really high in nicotine. They're super addictive, but they're super good. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Rich, robust taste. These are the black brand. They're highest in nicotine, but I like them. And at least every night when I'm out, I have a friend who asks for at least one, just to get a good nicotine hit. Um, Girl I took out a couple weeks ago, she made the mistake of having like 8 or 10 of them over like a 4 or 5 hour period. I honestly think between the libations and the nicotine, I honestly think she was like gone. I honestly think the nicotine hit her harder than the alcohol did. But that's another story, but which probably doesn't need to be told. So, but I'm probably gonna jump off here in a minute. I try to keep my videos down to around 25 to 27, 28 minutes. Just wanted to check in. I mean, I'm trying to reach out to everybody. I'm trying to connect to people from all, demographics, from all ethnic groups, from everything. People need to have these discussions, man. They need to, sit down and talk about their feelings, without people judging them and so on, as I said in one of my last videos, I mean, a lot of people will say I'm a white privileged kid, but my family was poor for years. I mean, we were broke. My dad, even though he was part of a family business for a while, that didn't work out. And I mean, we had a tough time, for a while. But in the end, things worked out. My parents are still together. It's been they just hit their 50th year anniversary this past month. So it's been rough for everybody. And I'm 10 years divorced. Got two kids, but they're great kids. I mean, love them to death. I mean, they're super smart and just extremely intelligent children. I'm very, very blessed that my children are the way they are. I'll just leave that at that. Smart kids. Um, but you know, a lot of my life, I attribute a lot of my success to people from minority backgrounds who had a major influence on my life, who were in a better place than my family even was. African American, African Jamaican, um, indigenous. Um, you know, I attribute who I am as a person and who I turned into from my childhood till adulthood. I attribute that to them, man. They're great people. Still in touch with most of them. One of those people passed away, but the rest of them are still around. So, but yeah, um, I just wish everybody could just sit down and sit back and listen to everybody else and not judge them and have a good discussion, find some common ground. I mean, that's really the only way we're going to solve things is if we all find some common ground that we can stand on. I'm getting a little bit symbolic here, but find some common ground we can all stand on and come together and just stop being so vitriolic, in our minds and in our thoughts and what we think about others when we're alone, like I am now, when we're alone and, you know, when it's quiet and, just try to put yourself into the shoes of others. I mean, I've done that. I mean, I know that the world always hasn't been a great place for blacks and for minorities. Um, if you go further back, you know, and I know that's controversial, but I mean, Irish and Scottish were subjugated by the British. There was a Barbary slave trade. There was the Persians. Um, you know, at some point in history, everybody's been a slave. The Jewish and with the Egyptians and you know, slave. What was it? There's a Metallica song, "Slaves, Hebrews born to serve to the Pharaoh." I think that was like 300 or 400 years too. I mean, so the Jews haven't had the best time. I mean, Christ was a Jew, whether you like it or not. He was Jewish, and the Jewish were subjugated for hundreds of years, and of course, there's the Holocaust in the 20th century. So, but I'm not gonna delve into all that at the moment. But it's 29 minutes in, so I'm going to go ahead and drop out of here. I'm gonna probably review this a little bit and then probably post it up. So today is Friday. Well, it was Friday. Now it is Saturday. The Let me look at my clock here. Saturday, July the 18th. So I'm sorry, of 2020. At 4:26 in the morning. So hope you all have a great Saturday, Sunday, rest of the weekend, and a better week next week. Try to turn off the TV a little bit, get away from all the mass media. Sit down with a friend, sit down with numerous friends. Try to, if you're fortunate enough to have diversity in your life, sit down with somebody of the opposite religion, color, ethnicity, you know, and just sit down and talk to them, just and listen, listen to what they feel, and hopefully they'll do the same to you, I know from a white perspective, I'm saying sit down and listen to the minority perspective, but hopefully the minority perspective will listen to what we have to say, as white people as well. Again, it's just it's so simple. Just listen to each other, come to an understanding, make your own community better. Once you make your own community better, um, it'll just keep going from there. So if everybody in communities across the country did what I'm saying right now and stuff, when I go to another community, say I went up to Danville or to Lexington or Cincinnati, hopefully people up there would be doing the same thing. And when I come up there and sit down, they'll have the similar understanding to what I'm talking about here. It's just I'm rambling now, but that's what we need to do is just sit down, listen to each other, and come to an understanding. And that's the way to do it. So everybody have a good night, good weekend, and I'll probably check in sometime early next week. Good night.